All right, everyone, welcome to Rhythm and Roads. I'm your host, Joshua Jacob. My co-host, Serene, will not be joining us today, but she'll be with us on the next episode. We have a very special guest, Richard Ramsey, director of the new film coming out, Unsung Hero, and also the director of the song, which actually I love so much. That movie's such an incredible movie. So welcome, sir.
Oh, thank you. It's honored to be. I'm honored to be here. Sorry, this is actually kind of, I guess, early for me. And my wife and I and we just got back from LA uh, at like 2 in the morning. So
Two in the
I'll try to
morning.
be,
Oh, brother.
yeah, yeah.
Ah,
So I'll try to be as coherent as possible. But I already this right out of the gate had a little bit of a flub there. So
yeah. No, well, I appreciate your time and even having
oh,
this
absolutely.
early morning. I mean, yeah, early morning flight in. Oh my God. Well, first,
Yeah.
I do want to get to know you. Like, what interests you to want to do film? Because I did read that you went to a school in university in Houston, right?
Yes, I actually had a degree in theater, and then a youth pastor at a church I was attending, who I did not know particularly well at the time. He told me that there was a group of students who were really into theater and drama and stuff, and he said, "I know you're into that." And the guy those kids have a drama group, but the guy who heads it up and leads it, he's leaving to move to Oklahoma. I was living in Houston at the time,
Oh, okay.
and he asked if I would take it over. And I was reluctant to do that. I think I was hoping something would come along to just give me like a good excuse to not do it. But just through a sort of series of events, I reluctantly agreed to take it on. And then from there, I kind of discovered, my wife and we were dating at the time. I kind of roped her into it with me, um, which she seemed happy to do.
Yeah.
And then we started kind of writing and directing little like plays for them to do.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And yeah, and then we started sort of veering into doing videos too, for different youth events and
Yeah.
stuff. And so after a couple of years of doing that, my wife and I, by this time we were married, and we cobbled together like $500 to do a short film,
What? Wow.
with a couple of with my brother and another really good friend of ours who's an actor.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we put that in in a couple film festivals, and that's where I met the staff of an organization in Louisville called City on a Hill.
Okay.
And I kept in touch with them over about a 4 year period after first meeting them, and then they asked me to join the staff of City on a Hill after about 4 years.
Okay.
They were actually asking me sooner, but I kept like having things in Houston that I wanted to do and were trying to do. But then when all that kind of just fizzled, I was like, sure, why not? So I moved to Louisville to work for City on Hill Productions, and that's who I was working with when I did the song.
I,
And then yeah, so that's kind of brings you up to speed at least to there.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And I did notice the company on there, the production company from when I watched the film. I actually watched it last night.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah, I
Okay.
rented it on
Yeah.
Amazon. I was like, I gotta watch it. But it's such an incredible movie. I mean, I love it's so real and so just I love the fact that you use Song of Solomon from that
Yeah. Well,
verses.
thank you.
That was your first feature film?
That was.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I had done a lot of shorts by then. And then City on the Hill sort of bread and butter as an organization was they would do what we would kind of call like cinematic DVD Bible studies, where you would take, a pastor would have a kind of a teaching series, and then
Okay.
we would build dramatic content to go around that teaching series. So
Oh,
that, yeah. And so I kind of just got there by degrees. I started writing like little short plays for high school students, and then I wrote a short for, some actor friends and my wife who was an actress. And
yeah.
so it was just like kind of incremental degrees building to that feature. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And you wrote that story, right? For the song, for the script.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, and I remember they approached me at City on a Hill and were saying, we want to do a movie inspired by the Song of Solomon. Um, and it was immediately apparent at the time that, if we're going to do something based or inspired by the Song of Solomon, that we should have the main character's life parallel Solomon's life in some way. And I didn't quite know how at first. We didn't really know. We were like, well, is he a politician? But that seemed just kind of meh. Like, and it also, if you choose a politician, no matter what party you make him, you just alienate half the country
Okay.
um
Yeah.
immediately,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so and it just lacked romance,
Yeah.
um and I guess it was a couple weeks later, I was, my daughter, who's now about to be 14, but she would have been not, 6 months old at the time, right?
Okay.
If that. I was in the living room, like kind of just bounce dancing her to there's a Bob Dylan song called "You Ain't Going Nowhere,"
Okay.
and the couple that was in the movie Once, they have a cover of it, and I was listening to that
Oh.
cover of that song, and I was when I was doing that, I just kind of thought, oh man, it would be great to do a music driven movie one day. That'd be really fun. And then it just suddenly hit me like, wait a second, what
There you
if,
go.
yeah. And so within like, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes, I ventured into the kitchen where my wife was, and I just said, hey, what if Solomon were a singer-songwriter and he wrote a song for his wife, and then that made him famous. And then once he's famous, he kind of is faced with all the temptations that Solomon was faced in. And it
Uh,
just sort of started clicking. I was like, oh, what if his dad was like an even more famous country singer?
right. Right. Yeah.
And so it just kind
Oh
of
man,
all clicked into place and
that's
made
awesome.
sense. Yeah. So, and it was funny. I was telling my daughter that the other day because she doesn't remember,
Okay.
obviously, and I was just telling her, I was like, yeah, we were actually driving to the premiere for King and
Yeah.
Country, and she was asking me about that movie, and I said, yeah, I said I was actually holding you when I had the idea for that movie.
Oh
So
man, that's so cool.
yeah,
Well, thank you for your time
yeah,
and sharing that story.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
And so, how did you get to the point of transitioning from that movie to getting the software to do Unsung Hero?
Yeah. So when I was working at City on a Hill, our executive director Tony Young,
Okay.
he started forming a relationship with the Irwin brothers,
Okay.
and he was kind of the first backer of I Can Only Imagine.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Good
And
films.
so then yeah, that the Irwin brothers made. And when that movie was a huge success, it allowed the Irwin brothers to start Kingdom Story Company, and Tony Young was one of the founding members of that as well.
Okay.
So I kind of segued from Stay on a Hill to Kingdom Story Company, and I had written a um a first episode for what I'd hoped would be a mini series and it was set in like the mid 19th century. And the Owen brothers really liked it and said, hey, you have a proclivity for period pieces. And two of the Smallbone brothers, it actually wasn't Joel and Luke, it was Joel and their brother Ben, who's also a very talented filmmaker in his own right. Um, they came to John Irwin said, hey, we want to partner you with Joel and Ben because they're wanting to make this film set in the Civil War.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so I partnered with them on that, and that collaboration with Joel and I went really well. But then COVID happened my understanding is we were pretty close to getting greenlit,
Okay.
and then COVID happened and everything shut down.
Yeah.
So around that time, we decided to pivot because Luke had the idea of maybe we could tell our family story as a film.
Okay.
And so because our collaboration on the previous film had gone well, they just invited me to pivot over with them.
Yeah.
And so that's what kicked that off. And then we worked on the script off and on for close to 2 years, and it wasn't like, again, off and on being like we go away for months. I wrote another script during that time, something like that. But as we were kind of nearing development and pre-production, Joel asked me to co-direct with him because Ben was basically like, I think we need another voice in the mix. The simple and I think, yeah, basic version is Ben was like, I think, like directed by Small Bones, like co-written by Small Bones, starring a small. I think we just need a different. You might benefit from having a different voice in the mix.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, and I think also Andy Irwin might, I think he also when Ben sort of stepped back I think Andy Orton advocated for me as well. But they invited me to co-direct, so that's kind of the story of how I got involved in it.
Nice. Okay. And so now
Yeah,
next Friday is a big day. So
it is.
yeah,
Yeah,
how do you feel?
I feel good. It's the the responses have been really, really positive.
Awesome.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, and you never know until opening day or the day after opening day. But I feel good, and it's very different from the song on all levels. Just even down to like for King and Country has been, at a different church
Yeah.
every Sunday since like early February. And then that's not even accounting that you can send out, like Rebecca's been going out, Rebecca St. James, their older sister, which a lot of people don't know, didn't know until,
Surprisingly,
you know,
right?
yeah, yeah. And so she's been going out doing a lot of media appearances. So is Candace Cameron. So for me, if I compare it to the song, it's overwhelmingly more out there than the song ever was.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that's been a positive. So at the very least, I know it's so different that it won't be like a identical repeat. It'll be, you know,
Okay. Right, right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
And
so it's
is
exciting.
Yeah, it is. And I'm really excited to already have 4 tickets ready to go for
Oh wow, thank you.
Saturday. So my girlfriend and I,
Yeah,
best friend, are going and another friend. So we're ready.
yeah.
Um,
Well, thanks.
yeah, yeah. I do want to ask, what got to the point of wanting to hire Candace Cameron? I mean, I'm a huge fan of Candace. So what, like, was
Yeah.
it your idea or who was it that said, let's hire?
So our producer Josh Walsh,
Okay.
he was the one who had the idea and reached out to her.
Oh, okay.
And so yeah, and it was and we thought that sorry, I think I have a cat meowing at my door.
Oh,
And
dude.
so like a couple of my family members are out of town who usually can kind
Oh,
of
okay.
wrangle animals.
I
So I
don't hear
might
it,
hop.
but
Okay, okay. If you can't hear it, then I'll
yeah, I
just
can hear
ignore it.
it.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, my daughter who I would talked about, dancing with, she's actually tending to our golden retriever who's very loud if
Oh, okay.
she hears me talking to somebody. Okay, so Candace Cameron, yeah, so he just, I mean, from a producer standpoint, he was like, she's a great producer, an effective producer, and it could be great to have her involved. And then from an artistic standpoint, it was like, hey, you know what? And she actually does fit um, a good and game-changing role in the story. So it seemed to work, and so we reached out to her, and she read the script, and I think she got back to us really quickly and was
Wow.
like, yeah, I'm in, let's do it. And so she's been amazing. Just she really helped, and she was actually one of the early people to buy in.
Is that
And
right?
yeah, so it's usually, I mean, it wasn't like, oh, we're well down the road. Let's kind of see if we can work her in somehow. I mean, she was probably, I think we had a meeting with, well, all I'd say, like really early on, she was the first person besides Joel, who plays
Right.
his own father.
Okay.
She's the first person we cast.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so her kind of early buy-in was really crucial to it
Yeah.
getting off the ground and getting going.
Okay.
And then lately she's been just a champ, like going out and advocating for it. And
Oh
that's
yeah,
been
she has. I've been
such
following
a,
her.
yeah, yeah.
So this
And
story
then,
for oh, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna
I
just
think it's good
say,
to get into the story.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This story is mainly about the from is it mainly the standpoint of like Rebecca St. James and how they all came about, or is it like what's the main focus on this?
Yeah, great question. So, just to give a quick overview before I get into point of view, for those of you who don't know, so for King and Country, our two brothers, Joel and Luke, their older sister is Rebecca Smallbone, who most people know as Rebecca St. James. Their father was a concert promoter in Australia. He brought a lot of Christian music artists to Australia and introduced them to Australian audiences. And he was very successful at that until he had a deal go bad and he lost everything.
Oh wow.
So, um, in kind of trying to stay into the music business, he had, through networking, he got a job in Nashville, still in the music business. So his family decided and is pregnant. So six kids, and Helen, his wife, was pregnant with the seventh. They
Oh
up and move across the world to America only for him to discover pretty quickly after arriving that the job he thought he had was being taken away. So
Man.
they basically lived hand to mouth until Rebecca Smallbone becomes Rebecca St. James. And it's actually so without getting too academic, usually your protagonist and your main character are the same.
Okay.
Sometimes they're not. There are exceptions.
Mm.
And our film is one of the exceptions where I would say David is the protagonist in that his kind of choices and actions like heavily drive the plot,
Okay.
but the main character and the point of view through whom we see the story is the mother.
Oh, really?
And
Wow.
yeah, and so and it does be kind of this it does kind of become like a Rebecca St. James origin story.
Okay.
Um, and then I think one last thing I would say, of another film I kind of liken it to, although I will say that we started working on Unsung Hero before I heard of the other movie, is King Richard with Will Smith about, the
Oh,
father
that
of,
one. Yeah, I remember
yeah,
that.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you saw it, but that movie focuses much more on the parents, particularly the father,
Okay.
and Venus and Serena Williams are prominent characters, obviously, and kind of as Venus is sort of ascending to her place, you
Hmm.
know, that's kind of when we go that kind of solves the central conflict of the story, and we're out. And so, like, I would say similarly, if Rebecca's like the Venus Williams of this, and then
Okay.
Joel and Luke are like the Serena Williams,
Oh, I never seen that movie, but I know
Yeah,
what
yeah.
you're pertaining to. Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. And then also instead of like the father being the main character, it's
Right.
it's the mother. Although
Absolutely.
the father is, yeah, the father's very prominent. Like I said, he's arguably the protagonist, and we've had a overwhelmingly positive and captivating response from men who have said that they very deeply identify with him.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So,
I actually look forward to watching it too and be like, yeah, I can relate to that, or yeah, that's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And then one last thing is before we end, I did notice
Sure.
the soundtrack of this film is a lot of great artists from Michael W. Smith,
Yeah,
Stryper, Lecrae. I was just like, how did you guys
yeah,
think of that idea? Was
yeah.
it that?
Yeah, so I think they were really wise in this, and I admittedly did not have a lot to do with the soundtrack.
Okay.
I mean, this is the extent that I had anything to do with it. One of the first things I did when I found out we were telling this story is I got on Google. It was like, what were the top 40 radio hits in 91, 92, 93? And
Yeah.
so I put together like a playlist to listen to as I, developed and wrote. That's the end of my contribution. I think where they very wisely took the route they did is, nowadays, well, like 20 years ago, if you saw a movie and you love the songs in it, it was like, oh, I want to buy the CD with all the
Right.
songs in it.
Exactly.
Now, if you see a movie and you like all the songs in it, you go on Spotify and you make a playlist of all the songs in it.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
Yep.
and so to just sort of bring a fresh perspective to it all, and to just, I think it's something their fans would appreciate for them to contribute to a soundtrack in some way. They had this great idea to do like inspired by soundtrack where they take some of the songs from the movie and then put their own kind of for king and country twist in them, where they collaborate with, in some cases, the original creators and writers of that song. So, for example, they collaborate with Michael W. Smith to kind of redo or cover
Place in the
with the
world.
original artist, Place in This World. Amy
That's a good
Grant's with
song,
him
by the way.
doing, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny to go back and listen to it after all these years. You're like, oh yeah, that really was a great song, and is. And so they are working with, they did Lead Me On with Amy Grant, and then of course To Hell with the Devil with
Yeah,
Stryper.
I heard that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're a Stryper fan, and for any Stryper fans, Stryper is actually appears. Actors playing Stryper, appear at the beginning of the film. Um,
I was watching a
so
reel
yeah,
back to what you're saying about Stryper in the film. I watched the reel, I think, on Unsung Heroes, and Luke was
yeah,
in an interview that he was playing the Michael
yeah,
Sweet.
yeah. So Luke plays Michael Sweet, the lead singer of Stryper, and along those lines, every sibling. So there's seven small bone siblings, and then Helen and David. They all make little cameos
Oh no way!
in the movie. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah. So that was really special and fun, and then a couple of them I think are particularly special. And I love Luke's. And then also say, just because look closely, and we'll tell you who it is at the end. If we show some of the cameos at the end of the
Oh, do
movie to
you?
like reveal who they were, yeah.
Yeah.
But another one of my favorites is Libby, who's the youngest of the small bones.
Okay.
I think she's got one of my favorite cameos as well. Yeah,
Awesome. Well, I'm
yeah,
looking forward to seeing it next weekend.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for already getting tickets and for
Oh,
helping us
yeah.
get the word out with this. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Real quick, do you have any other future projects in the works of something else?
Yeah, so I'm working on a sci-fi project. That's about all I could say at this
Oh,
point.
wow. Okay.
And then the project that we pivoted away from um, to do this
Yeah.
when COVID happened. If this movie goes well, I think we'll be able to pivot back to that one, and that would be really incredible. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. I'll be looking out for that next project.
All right. Well, thanks.
Well, thank you again, Richard Ramsey, and I wish you and everyone the best on this new film, Unsung Hero, releasing nationwide next Friday, April 26th. So thank you again, sir, for your time coming on Rhythm and Roads podcast and sharing your story.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, guys, well, we'll catch you on the next episode. Have a great weekend.